moli woy ye malasiata banga moli woy Yaya minfo banga moli ye munabara wola woy banga na nyata jalan demo bali wo jalan demo ba woli fele bara la bango moli wo jalan demo bali wo azmara jalan demo ba woli fele bara la bango moli wo alina mira dindum wala somala na moli woy bango ya tanya to woy nimbara bango mulal nimbara na bango do ko tanya to anak makan sempo bula bango molie maraba dingo dinkendo e dining bo bara la bango tanya to al nimbara Gambia dinkendo lu
Yaya Instant Services, the coolest and most awesome way to send and receive money worldwide. We're simple, swift, and secure. Send money in 3 simple steps. Select country, add receipt details, and remit the amount. Super fast and easy with unbeatable rates. Get funds deposited directly into your bank account in the Gambia with no third parties involved. Our coverage includes UK and Ireland, Europe, and all over Africa. Transfer money with any device and get instant email or SMS notification. In fact, transfer money and have it received within minutes. Visit us at www.yaya.co.uk and get instant access to latest rates, free calculator, mobile top-up, track your transactions live wherever you may be, and so much more. Contact us today and revolutionize value for monetary transactions. Available now on the Apple App Store and Android Market.
Bagul, Kudu, Halis, Yaya Wali. Instant, Yaya money transfer. Instant, Yaya money transfer. It's all no yata, Yaya money transfer. Instant, Yaya money transfer. Ilana yata, Yaya money transfer. Instant, Yaya money transfer. It's all no yata, Yaya money transfer. Instant, Yaya money transfer. Dulelana yata, itole so no yata. Kodo dunni yaki te koduna karobela. Banko karobela, katong fokoina. Yaye benyin dulala, UK ning Ireland. Europe kata Africa aning America. Nagaritela kuto, itonya yata fana. Mobi yate de yaye lana yata. Nyotan tenyula yaye lana yata. Instant yaye money.
Activity is the voter registration. It's clear that efficient, credible registration process, registration exercise lays the foundation for one to hope that the elections that will follow will be credible, fair, and transparent. It is the ideal for elections to be really meaningful in a democracy. Conversely, a rigged process of registration or a rigged registration gives rise to rigged elections, bad elections, with all what that can translate into in terms of not only the credibility of the elections, but it can spill over into the broad realm of stability of the country, peace and stability. because as we are all familiar with the phenomena of pre-election violence, but also post-election violence. Quite often is a result of badly conducted elections, which, as I say, can also arise out of rigged registration. Now, there is also something special about the current registration operation going on. All registrations are important, but ours also has something special to it. We must remember it's coming against the backdrop of strongly held suspicions in many quarters that previous elections for the past 20-something years have been very discredited. So discredited that it got to a point that credible external observers have shunned coming here to observe elections. I don't remember whether ECO was in the end shunned, but it got to a point that the Commonwealth wasn't coming, EU wasn't coming, and I doubt even if African unity was coming. It was the low point to which things got to in terms of the credibility of our elections. And in that context, there is a strongly held view in many places that the registrations that led to those elections or that prepared for those elections had been rigged very badly. That's what part of the backdrop. There is also, of course, the fact that this particular registration is coming just on the eve of a cycle of elections, not just the December scheduled presidential election, but there's a whole cycle of other elections coming. So it makes this particular registration of special importance because given the bad experience with governance, with elections, with registration in the past, the 2016 vote was a vote for change, was a vote to express the Gambian people's wish for a change. Hence the slogan, never again. That slogan, never again, should apply very, very much so to registration of voters. We don't want a situation where we repeat what obtained in registrations in the previous 20-something years, with a lot of fraud going on, which led to the registration usually of people who are not qualified, either on the grounds of nationality or on the grounds of age. I don't need to go into it because I think we have all been following the political scene. There were many stories which even the authorities then couldn't dispel, that you had nocturnal registration going on in areas in Bakau, in Talindinkunja, and so on. And that's really an extent of how bad things went. And it almost led people to suspect that the electoral register, in fact, was inflated, because even in relation to the total population of the country, it's at a point higher than the normal in most countries. So against this backdrop, there is a very strong desire expressed by the Never Again slogan that we will, in the area of registration, do it correctly, leading hopefully to the cleaning the rubbish and the mess that has had over the years their way into our electoral register. In other words, we are hoping for an electoral register this time which will be much cleaner, which will be healthy for our democracy. It will also help to reflect truly the wishes of the real Gambian people entitled under the law to vote. Otherwise, you can have a truncated outcome if a significant proportion of those who participate in elections don't in fact have any right to have done so. So that being the case, some of us were very much hopeful or encouraged when the new transitional government, upon assuming office, made what was an important, I thought, an important policy commitment to keep our local government authorities, from the commissioners, or they call them governors, to chiefs and alkalulu, out of partisan politics. Because these terrible elections we've been having, this preceded by terrible registration, in those exercises, unfortunately, these very authorities, the governors, the chiefs and alkalis, have been major actors in perpetuating the fraud. Whether they did it willingly or unwillingly, it is a fact that they were perceived, and it is true that they did participate very much too. So when the transitional government said, now, under the new order, these people will be kept out of partisan politics, it gave us hope. Now we have to see whether that is really what is happening in reality. Now, in reality, what are we saying? Registration is in its 4th or 5th week. I think it has only got 1 more week to go. I think the least one can say is that the process, unfortunately, has been mired in controversy right from the first week and throughout this period. There has been a lot of controversy, persistent, continuous controversy, and in many instances there have been even incidences of disorder at registration sites, leading to temporary interruption of the process. Now, I don't need to elaborate it. I think most of what I'm saying here is well known. What is important is what one can point at as the factors responsible for this situation, this controversy, this messy election process, registration process going on. Obviously, there is a strongly held suspicion in many quarters that there is an intention to fraud the process. There is a very strongly held view, both by those who openly protested, but even by some who have not protested in the open, but they suspect. Because there are signs which one cannot mistake. Pictures floating, showing what look very much as underage children being admitted at registration sites. That's already a strong sign, particularly against the background of our experience for the past 22 years, when we know that that's one of the forms of fraud that has been going on. Secondly, there is this the whole phenomenon of attestations and the problems it has brought around. Now, I'll hold a little while to give you our own thoughts on the issue of attestations. Yes, we do agree that in our situation, where other identification documents may not be in the possession of a sizable number of our population, particularly in the rural areas, for a whole number of reasons. For this reason, yes, one could understand that apart from the law allowing it, that it does appear sensible that you allow another more accessible method of authenticating the Gambian citizenship or the age of people who may want to claim to be registered, even where they don't have ID cards and passports and birth certificates. So the principle of it was I think was good. Principle is good, and the law also backs it. And we as a party understood. Our attitude is to show understanding for it. But of course, that was on the assumption, and I like to believe that was the intention in it, that it would appear not on such a massive scale, that it gives rise to suspicion that there could be abuse going on. Because yes, it's a good thing in principle, but one has to be aware that it's also vulnerable to abuse unless safeguards are built into it. And it seems the absence of such safeguards has led to the phenomenon we are witnessing, where the resort to attestations is being done on a massive scale, leading people to suspect that there is a lot of hanky-panky going on. Reports around by none other than credible civil society organizations are suggesting. They even went as far as citing cases. Sarengai in Wuli, somewhere in URD with young underage people, in other parts of the country, that these things are going on. And all of them, the cheap, easy tool is attestation. Attestation documents produced by these people. Now, let's look at it. Who are the actors for producing these attestations? These are mainly local government authorities, whether mayors, alkali, alkalulu, and chiefs. Now, sadly, the reality, in spite of this coalition government's commitment to keep these precise authorities out of partisan politics, the reality is that they are very much within partisan politics. Only last week, the president was addressing Al-Kalol and Seful, and we all listened to him, and he said it quite clearly. He told them, you owe it to belong to a particular party, a particular set of forces. And these are the very people who are supposed to deliver these documents. Obviously, this is a very unsatisfactory situation, and it's an explanation why there is this large turnout of people claiming to register using attestation. There are also, of course, the controversies and the suspicion of fraud has led to incidences of disorderly behavior, even violence, with some people resorting to antisocial behavior, thuggery, hooliganism. These are all very undesirable, and they all contribute, together with this massive suspicious use of attestations, to lead to a situation where our confidence and the confidence of many Gambians in the registration process is very much called into question. The process is still on, it's not completed, and we do know that there is provision for revising courts to which one can appeal for some cases, but one is not naive to believe that that will necessarily help to clean if fraud is perpetrated on a large scale. So we are at a situation where we have serious fears for the credibility of the ultimate outcome of the process going on, precisely because of some of this. A lot of it is blamable, well, some of it, a very small proportion, in fact, is blamable on practical problems like printing equipment not functioning. That's a minor problem. But the biggest part is really due to either exercise of poor judgment on the part of IEC. Examples being when you locate registration in the house of individuals or even political figures in a climate of competitive. I mean, of course, you're calling for controversy and fears, or you go and cite registration in a hot spot like Kanilai without making adequate security provisions to make sure that people can go and exercise their right to observe the process without being harassed. I mean, these are really judgments, questionable judgments on the part of the registration authorities, the IEC. But even more seriously, the factor of attestation is blamable eventually on those people who are behind the scene pulling the strings. These alkalis and the mayors, they are little marionettes. It's those behind who are pulling the strings, who are making them do what they, who are blamable for the present situation. And it's a very deplorable situation. And I think it's something that we as a party feel very concerned about, that people, some of them leadership positions, can be found to be engaging, and in a cowardly manner at that, in activities that are tantamount to undermining the credibility, the efficiency, and the trustworthiness of the registration process. We therefore express fears that about the integrity of the eventual outcome of the registration. We condemn all those who are engaged in manipulating the process to rig the registration. We condemn the use of violence, resort to violence and intimidation to influence the process in one way or the other. And we call on the perpetrators at all levels, both the foot soldiers who are going about causing confusion and misusing the attestation process, and there are big men behind them who are pulling the strings. We call on them to sit back and reflect the harm they are doing to their own country. This is a country in a very fragile situation, arising out of a legacy of misrule with a highly polarized society. This is not a situation when we can afford the luxury of creating unnecessary problems for our system. This is the feeling of Gambia for All on the registration process. I'll talk a little bit about the prevailing political climate. One word, only one word I will use to describe it: toxic. It is a toxic climate into which we found the country plunged. It's even difficult to understand how come. This is a country, yes, we went through 2 decades or more of misrule and chaotic government, but before then we were civilized people who operated a civilized system of democracy and elections, and who went about, and the same people. Why should we get to a stage where 6 months or so before the elections, our political climate is being clouded with divisive rhetoric, abusive language, hate speech, all negative things that really bring our democracy and our political system into disrepute. I blame this firstly on the political bankruptcy of the political class as a whole. That in our discourse, in our daily discourse, our statements, which are carried by the newspapers almost every day, there's really very little focus on the real issues facing our country. On the other hand, on the contrary, people run after headlines because they want to be quoted in the headlines, but they're only giving cheap rhetoric about things that are meaningless. So I think there is certainly what I'll call bankruptcy of the political class, political bankruptcy. There is also a phenomenon creeping in, is a phenomenon of irresponsible behavior. I refer to hate speeches, messages of division, abuse, some of them going to very low levels of vileness, if you like to call it. And this is very, very sad. We are in a situation where, and of course this leads to the logical conclusion of springing up of the phenomenon of thuggery and hooliganism. We've seen so many instances of people actually going into blows. Why so many months before elections? Now, we must remember, as I said, that this is a country in which the state is very fragile after so many centuries, so many decades of misrule, abusive rule, repression, polarization. Our society is highly polarized. Our state itself is very fragile. Why should we worsen the situation by this kind of social and political, negative social and political tactics which only go to make us more vulnerable and undermine the very basis of stability and peace that we need in this country. It is a very sad situation, and the position of the Gambia for all is to deplore the situation, to condemn the trend, to unreservedly, in particular, condemn violence in all forms, whether verbal or physical, in our politics. We, as a party, call on Gambians to sit up and reflect on the real challenges, the challenge of salvaging our country from the situation in which it is. Our country is badly derailed as a state. We need to urgently focus our energies and our time on bringing it back on track to make it resume the process of nation building, which the founders of our independence, the cause on which the founders of our nation at independence set the country, and from which it has badly been derailed. We believe that all Gambians must be left to enjoy their rights as citizens and their freedom, as well as their entitlement to respect and to dignity. And this is irrespective of their political views, irrespective of their religious beliefs, irrespective of their ethnic or regional origins. In particular, in this regard, we think the present trend, which is dangerous, has lasted a bit too long. Time has come for the leaders to blow the whistle. This game must be brought to an end. It's a dangerous nonsense. And we know it, that those who are in the front engaging in this hooliganism, this hate speech and all that, they are answerable to people. We know it. Today the headlines in one of the dailies even quoted a colleague of mine saying that certain political parties have developed between them an animosity and an atmosphere of animosity which is even dangerous to peace in the country. I think I will share that view. Maybe I will not restrict it to only those two parties mentioned. There might be others. But I'm saying that all parties whose members following are engaging in this antisocial behavior, time has come for them to blow that whistle they have in their mouth. Put a stop to it. Because the people who are doing it are their followers. And we believe that they have a strong influence over them. If only they have the political will to blow the whistle. Yes, they are talking. But what they are saying is to always put the blame on the other side. Now, we are not, as Gambians, interested in mutual recriminations. We are telling them, blow the whistle. You have the whistle in your mouth, blow it and stop your own people. If everybody does that, I think we'll improve the atmosphere in the country. I'll touch briefly also on the area of governance, because that also is an area of concern to our party. Again, a very broad, complex area, but I'll only touch on a few things. Firstly, it is to say that the coalition government is almost 5 years. At the end of its 5-year mandate, it was elected in December. In 4 months' time, it will have done its full year. So even if not for the scheduled elections, I think it's time now for us to sit back and try to take stock of their performance in office. And I'd like to, we, Gambia for All, believe that their performance should always be judged against what we call the objective agenda of the transition. We call the objective agenda because it is determined by the reality of the situation in the country. It's also determined by the option that the people chose at the time of the 2016 elections. The people had come to the conclusion that the order under which the country was being governed for 22 years was a very retrogressive order in which in the political domain, in the economic domain, in the social domain, the country was only registering regression. The political domain, I don't want to go into it, listen or try to remember what some of the things revealed at the TRRC. The economic domain, I would say, refer your mind a bit to some of the revelations made at the Janneh Commission and many others. This was the order under which the country was run and misruled for 20-something years, so that when the people eventually voted to throw out that order, they wanted a change. They really wanted a change, and that change determined a certain agenda, which I call the objective agenda, which the transitional government performance must be judged by, not by, I have nothing against they call it in National Development Plan, NDP, but for me it's only important to the extent that it conforms to this objective agenda. And critical in that objective agenda is the reforms, the governance reforms that were called for. Reforms of institutions, reforms of systems of governance, reforms of processes and principles of governance, and processes and practices of governance, which will make sure, which will start, these reforms will start with ensuring accountability for past wrongs, because you have to account for what went wrong in the past so that you can ensure justice and promote reconciliation. These are one big area of the objective agenda that this government is set to do, to carry out. 5 years down the line, we have to ask ourselves, how well are they doing along that line? In the domain of the economy has was brought to its knees by 2016. Production in all the key sectors was brought to almost zero. Perhaps the only notable exception has been the dynamic sector of tourism, which continued to be a bit resilient. But most others, agriculture, fisheries, and most others is brought to zero. Lack of investment, poor management, embezzlement, fraud, corruption, these are all factors that really brought the economy to its knees. Our farming communities have had considerable amount of interaction with them this year, and it's unbelievable when they narrate to you in their own words their experience over the last 20-something years. And the same would be heard from people engaged in fishing and those engaged in livestock and all other production activities. No wonder our economy went into the doldrums, creating the coterie of social problems that we all know of in the country. The agenda, therefore, the objective agenda, therefore, in the area of economy is to work for the recovery to start. Recovering the economy from the situation where it will take a long time, but it should, the government after 5 years should be showing a solid foundation for recovery. By now, we should be showing a solid foundation for recovery in the area of reorienting priorities when it comes to investing resources. By now, we should see a significant reversal of priorities with investments going to the productive sectors, which have been neglected in the past. It hasn't happened. By now, we should also see a significant change in improving the macroeconomic framework through insistence on fiscal discipline, control of wastage, and combating corruption. These are all essential to get the macroeconomic situation to be solid, to start as a foundation for the recovery that is needed for the country. Now, these are all part of the objective agenda. And we have to, against that now, gauge how we see the reality on the ground. We are not very much impressed by the ongoing rhetoric about a stretch of roads built here, a stretch of road built here, and self-serving claims that this transitional government has done more than what this other government has done. That's really too cheap. We look at the realities as they are. On the broad front of reforms needed for our institutions, our governance system, our governance processes, and our governance practices, we see no change. The reform agenda is completely stalled. And again, examples are many. To start with, the Constitution itself, which is supposed to be the main framework for the reforms, we know what happened to the sad story. Well, a lot of effort has been done, and from the look of it, the drafters of the Constitution went through a very thorough process of consultation. They have come out with a draft, which of course cannot be perfect. No draft Constitution is ever perfect, no Constitution is ever perfect. But it was reasonable in that it represents major advances on the prevailing Constitution in the critical areas like freedoms of citizens, in critical areas like balancing the powers of the main governmental institutions, and so many other points. It represents, if anybody read it carefully, a major opportunity to advance the quality of governance in the country. And yet it is blocked down there. It's blocked down there. Again, the same abuse of the party system, where people hiding behind use the long string to use other institutions or parliamentarians or chiefs, use them and manipulate them. Otherwise, why would a constitution, a draft constitution like this, fail to be adopted or amended if they like it in parliament? But to block it, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. To make matters worse, the government has since been making pronouncements. Oh, we have made resort to external mediation, a reputable body, they will find us a solution. Well, what? Now we are in July. When will that mediation deliver its results in the form of getting the Constitution finally approved in time for the election? How? But that's just the Constitution. The other reform items are also stalled, either stalled or not quite convincing in the way they were implemented. In the area of economic mismanagement, the government chose only a small bit, what they call the financial affairs of the former president and his close associates. It was just a small bit. But even that, there are a lot of people who believe, for strong reason, that it couldn't go as far as possible because a lot of people with information refuse to cooperate because of fear of incriminating themselves. Apart from that, the results or the recommendations that came out of the commission itself, even on the basis of that inadequate amount of evidence produced to them, the government has gone about implementing in a manner which is the most non-transparent. Many people who've been in the Gambia don't even know really how it was implemented. It's all mired in confusion and controversy. And there goes for you for the reform that is supposed to address issues of accountability. Only one, even is a major player, but Jame and his close are just one small bunch of players. There are others. The mismanagement is on a larger scale than covered by the terms of reference of the Jane Commission. Then, of course, there are the other sectors also crying for reform. The security sector is one. The civil service, the main backbone of the administration, which has been the main instrument for delivering the government's, the state's development activities for the benefit of the people. We know that the civil service, once the pride of the Gambian state, has been terribly mishandled and mismanaged and messed up over 22 years. But it's the same. 5 years, it's still the same. With the same bad practices, cronyism, political interference. How many times have we seen Where is the independence and the professionalism that we expect of our civil service? No attempt to reform the civil service, to return it to that, to make it fit for purpose. Instead, it's used for political agenda. Some officer effective on his job from the purely professional standpoint is of the wrong political order, wrong political smell. Therefore, you take him out. Not only you take him out, but you post him as ambassador somewhere he has no clue of, no clue in. He has no clue in. What a waste of resources. This is how the civil service is being mismanaged. This is how it has been mismanaged for over 20-something years. Some of our best brains were victimized. And because the regime, the monstrous regime, also, never respected the rulings of the courts, those civil servants had no redress for the injustice done to them. And it's still the same going on. Still the same going on. Today it is managing director so-and-so, tomorrow it is governor so-and-so, tomorrow is chief so-and-so. What a mismanagement of this. Instead of reforming the civil service, 5 years, you still continue the abuse of it. It's very sad. As I said, the civil service is terribly undermined. It has lost its Republican character. It has been highly politicized. It has lost its professional competence. And it is really just a political tool in the hands of the transitional government. The very transitional government which was elected into government to put a stop to this kind of misuse. It's just perpetuating it. It is very, very sad. I talked a little bit about, therefore, the reform agenda, institutional reform. The economy is no better. 5 years to date. 5 years to date, our agriculture, our fisheries, all our productive sectors continue to suffer from the lack of investment, which has brought them to their knees up till today. Yes, only yesterday I heard the Ministry of Agriculture announcing fertilizer available. Apart from the fact that people have lost confidence in public government pronouncements these days, but that apart, look at the timing. Is it now you are telling farmers fertilizer will be available? No, people wouldn't believe. What they would believe, what the people will believe about fertilizer is that this government, this transitional government has, talking about fertilizer in particular, what they do with it, they store it in Jarasoma until sometimes it goes what is the technical term? It becomes, something like that. Or they steal it and go and sell it in Senegal. Gambian fertilizer meant for Gambian farmers, stolen from and taken and sold in Senegal. Until the Senegalese law enforcement, you have to catch them and bring them back and refer the matter back here. That is what the people believe. Not the story that the Agriculture Ministry has tons and tons of fertilizer received. Yeah, we know when they receive, we know what they do with it. Yes, we know what they do with the fertilizer when they receive it. So as a result, the same lack of investment in the productive sectors still remains. The only sector which, as I said in the past, has shown some resilience has been tourism. And as if our misfortunes are only increasing, COVID has come to deal a deadly blow to that sector. Second season is around the corner, when the tourist season will not obtain in this country. In fact, expert projections are that we may be in 2023 before world tourism itself picks up. This is the dire circumstances of our economy. An economy where all the productive sectors are zero. All that works is this informal trade, which the central government and the area and the local governments acting like vampires are encouraging because of the tax they collect, tax. They really have little impact on the economy. This is the kind of state of our economy 5 years after. As I said, recovering the economy is a long process, but the expectation is that this government would have been serious enough to lay a solid foundation for the recovery to start. But the recovery hasn't even appeared on the horizons. There is a third area of governance I want to touch on. It's called corruption and administrative malfeasance. This has been a major player in bringing down the economy and in undermining development efforts of this country. As I said, the Yaya Commission raised a little end of the veil. There is a lot more, a lot more. And what are we seeing under the present coalition administration? In fact, it's a continuation and a worsening of it. I have here this report done by a very reputable firm, Ernst & Young, firm of auditors, who looked at just the small SOE sector, state-owned enterprises sector. You read this, you really shed tears for our country. And nothing has been done about this. The sheer amount of mismanagement and corruption going on in that small sector, and it has been submitted many months ago. Still nothing is done about it. Nothing. I don't know whether it has gone to Parliament or whether they will even take it to Parliament. But even if they take it to Parliament, Parliament is no better. Then there are a whole spate of scandals throughout these 5 years. Their 5-year mandate is littered with scandals. I talked about the Jara Soma fertilizer. 5 years to date, still now, nothing has come out of it. It took them 2 years hiding it behind until some intrepid journalist asked them a question. They said, yes, it has, but we will look into it. They put aside one minister here, arrested. They said they arrested 1 or 2 small officials. Up until now, till doomsday, they wouldn't appear in court. While we are talking about that, the fisheries people came into the ring. It's a dance. We had the agriculture people dance. The fisheries people came. They came. They also joined the dance. When another intrepid journalist actually captured the audio, the scandalous things going on. That's also another year. Up until now, silence. Is that all? That's not all. There are others. There are others. There is the issue of fake medicines, lorry load held at the border, either originating in the Gambia or transiting through the Gambia. What are the authorities, what have they investigated? Such a threat to public health. Talked about it quietly, kept quiet. There is the widely denounced practice of pharmacists, qualified pharmacists, selling their license to non-qualified people to practice the business of pharmacy, the profession of pharmacy, to the detriment of public health. This has been going on, but now that it has been brought in the open and denounced, the government took nothing. What about the seizure, repeated seizure of dangerous drugs through our country? Again, the media talks about nothing. Do I need to continue? It's a long list. What it shows really is that this government, this transitional government, is not manifesting the political will to tackle corruption and administrative malfeasance. In fact, the other forms of administration, I don't even want to bother going to it. You need to have a small business with any of the government agencies and see the kind of delay, the bribery asking, and all this kind of funny things going. And nothing's been done. So, as I said, the belief is that the political will is not there to carry out the reforms. The political will is not there, or the ability also is not there to tackle the economic front. There is no political will to tackle these corruption issues. As a result, of course, conditions only continue to worsen. Economic condition worsens, leading into unbearable social conditions. The Muslim elders of Banjul, on the occasion of last Korite, had to speak out. The cost of living is how do people live here? And this is the question of cost of living, but even other sectors affecting the lives of the people, the environment. Please let's spare a moment of thought to people living in Dipakunda, in Bundung, and all those places. The insalubrious conditions in which people are left to live. And the state has a responsibility for that. You cannot even say that, oh, they settled in the Farokono, they shouldn't have settled. No. The state has a service called Physical Planning Office with a set of laws and regulations, and they should enforce it. Even if people want to settle, they should be stopped from doing it because they don't have right to do it and to expose themselves and others to those kind of environment. Gambians have shown considerable enterprise and resilience under these 22 or 25 years. They've been saving monies. They've been building houses all over. But you go there, the basic input that should come from the state, the infrastructure, roads, electricity, water, internet are not there. People have invested their lives' effort into building in insalubrious environment where they have to live. Sometimes risk of fire. You see, even here, so many fire. How does that happen? Urban development or living, the state has its role to play. It has its part to play. Some states go as far as actually building as a social program houses for people. Gambians are not asking for houses. They say we will build our own houses. But please provide us with the basic services to make the living conditions habitable. Sometimes just apply your own laws to make sure that people don't live in but you leave them there. I will just touch briefly on, while talking about public health, look at even the challenge of the COVID thing. It is nowhere. If anybody is in under illusion that it's over, it's not over. Even Senegal here, next door, Liberia, Sierra Leone, they're all crying out. But you don't see here any sign of mobilization, call for to be ready for that. I think they call it COVID something committee. I don't know when last they met. If they met, we don't know about it. Everybody seems to be relaxed. Oh yes, they will say, but the people don't cooperate. Yes, that's true. That our society, members of society have perhaps not cooperated as much as they should in observing social distancing measures and even in accepting, what do you call it, the vaccination when it was available. That's true. But that's no excuse for the government. The government still has to look after public health. They should find a way. They should find a way, and they should appear to be more mobilized than we are seeing. We don't know, but we don't seem to see any mobilization. When you are told Senegal next door, crying out. Sierra Leone last night was crying, libraries, and the World Bank and the World Health Organization has been saying that this Delta thing is going to be devastating for Africa. All our houses surrounding your houses are burning, and you just stay comfortable in your own house. You think it will come to you. That's not the mark of effective leadership for a country. We therefore, as a party, deplore this state of affairs. We think this administration, this coalition administration, has really betrayed the Gambian people. We wanted transition to transformative change. They seem to want succession and self-perpetuation. Can I repeat? The people voted for them and wanted a transition to transformative change. Once elected into office, they settled for succession and self-perpetuation, which is very sad. It is very sad. This is really one of the reasons that gave our Central Committee cause to express concern about the state of affairs. I cannot say much to the transitional administration. There is only 4 months to their mandate. I hope they continue to try to do something about it. And please spare us this self-serving propaganda about a small bridge they built here, a small so and so. Economic development is not like that. It's not about few disjointed projects all over. It's about a strategy for bringing about activities that link up to promote production and for the economy to go forward. Not politically motivated electoral projects like rush to build a road and lay the foundation stone for electrifying 50 villages. By the way, electrification. You saw what Banjul has been electrified for many years, but we know what it is. So the people should be told, those 50 villages should be told that coming to lay the foundation stone for electrification doesn't mean the end of your worries. We all knew what happened the last 24 hours. So really, they should be serious. Development is about a serious matter. It's not about just bragging and self-serving. I build it. That's what Gambia has been doing many years. I built a road here. No. That's not development. It's about a much more serious business. So we tell them, we remind the coalition agenda that the objective agenda, whether they style it national development agenda, the objective agenda for them to carry out reforms, for them to show that they have laid foundation for economic recovery and that they have tackled some of the serious social ills like corruption and administrative malfeasance. And on those three scores, so far, their score is not impressive at all. We tell the Gambian people that we are a people known for our faida, our sense of faida. We have to have faida in ourselves. Time has come in 3-4 months' time will come to elect leaders. I think we should really look at our interest as a people and the future, our future and the future of our children, and elect leadership, place the country in hands of leadership which will work towards delivering your expectations. Yes, that's not what you will hear from some of political parties. They tell you, no, what's important is party doctrine. The party doctrine says, if our party puts up a candidate, even if he's a monkey, vote for him. That is not good. If there's a party doctrine, that is not what you, as a citizen who has had the opportunity and the right of a vote, that's not how we should. Because the right comes with responsibility. The exercise of your right to vote, important as it is, also comes with responsibility. That you should know that your vote is a participation in bringing about the right government or a bad government, which has the direct nexus with the quality of life for yourself, for your children from now onwards. 2021 December is an opportunity for the come. So I tell Gambians, we beg Gambians to please bear that point in mind. Bear that point in mind. And it's on this point that I will conclude as my presentation of the key issues that I wanted to highlight, over which the Central Committee of our party was moved to express concern on the state of affairs in the country. I thank you once again for all your time and
Agada. Albaka.
Mbaka important.
Yo, nga transfer la sto.
Ya transfer la sto.
Ha, code nyenje.
Okay. Nsila ID soto.
Sorry. Agada.
Bijan bro.
Albaka.
Mbaka.
Bara Allah service o tariya.
Mbare.
Mo ki janna nun kuno bara tariya.
Jannom yona forest de bureau. Gambia tonkon na lo mbali ya bere. Birim koyna fo kato.
Bari si kodo kino kato nim fo bolong blabe to.
56 branches mola soto Gambia jam.
Ha?
Gambia kono ani Gambia bantala bankol. Nko kono ki ya bere to. kodo sifa fo falindiro fo nyaadi lafta même na kodi topoto nin kodi maraw jannom number 1 ti nyonta andum fana nata anoda enterprise sotale wolam nyindi ko domorol fana kol fana be firale le dadi ma nin domorol nin fana beteat Gambia dawda yalo ngam fa kendol sotale je
wo moyo diat
apelenta
ni wo ka ni lafta nyelen kendol e binaji
yalo bu kanila ko la baraka ba
yalo ndel ciosano lo
abaraka